Hello students, today we are going to discuss about pharmacoepidemiology. Let us understand first the definition of pharmacoepidemiology. If you split this word into the different parts, then the pharmacon relates to the drug, epi that is upon or among, demos means people or a district, and logos means the study. So you can say that it is a study of the uses and the effects of the drugs in large number of people. So, what is pharmacoepidemiology? It is a study of use and effects of the drug in large number of people. It is the application of principles of the epidemiology for a safe use of the drug and to find out the effects of the drug. The epidemiology contains the two components I have already mentioned, pharmaco and epidemiology. So, pharmaco means the drug and epidemiology means the study of distribution or study of the determinants of the disease in a particular or in a general population. Epidemiology has two major areas. One is the study of the infectious disease in large population called epidemics, and second is the study of chronic disease. Pharmacoepidemiology involves gathering and analysis of information in order to identify possible causation and related factors, which can be applied in clinical practice to group of people or sometimes also to the individual who are undergoing treatment. So this examines the relationship between a drug exposure and what is going to be the outcome of it in a defined population. So there are various definitions of the pharmacoepidemiology. So let's go one by one. The Hardsman et al. Have defined pharmacoepidemiology as the application of epidemiological reasoning methods and knowledge to the study of uses and effects. Now, when we talk about the effects, it can be a beneficial effect or it can be an adverse effect of the drug in a tested human population. So populations are always a large group of the people, which may include sometimes not only thousands, but it can range up to the millions of people. So pharmacoepidemiological research in practice includes evaluation of a specific drug use in certain standardized conditions or patterns of the drug use, that is how it is being used, how much and where, when and by whom that drug has to be used, or the drug taking behaviors in the society. So how does the origin of the epidemiological studies begin? Initially there were no regulations to ensure the safety or efficacy of the drug available in the market. It happened in 1906 where the US government passed a Pure Food and Drug Act in response to excessive adulteration and misbranding of the food and the drugs. In 1937, over 100 people died because of the renal failure as a result of the elixir of sulfanilamide, which was dissolved with a diethylene glycol. In 1938, Drug and Cosmetic Act was passed. Because of this, manufacturers required an approval for FDA before they market their drug. In 1950, it was observed that chloramphenicol causes aplastic anemia. And in the same year, there was also a investigation of the drug-induced dyscrasis. In 1961, the case reports of the maternal use of the thalidomide with malformation of the offspring resulted awareness of the potential of the drugs to cause ADR. In 1968, UK established a committee on the safety of the medicine, and World Health Organization established a bureau to collect and analyze the information from this and similar national drug monitoring organizations. In early 1960s, the related field of drug utilization was developed along with study of ADRs. And with all these developments, 1960s is considered to be the beginning of the field of pharmacoepidemiology. ISAP was formed to obtain more data on the risks and benefits of the drugs, in population to discuss and develop and disseminate information about various methods used in pharmacoepidemiology. So the pharmacoepidemiology start is a bridge. It's a bridge between a basics of clinical pharmacology, PKPD studies, pharmacogenomics, pharmacovigilance, pharmacoeconomics together with basics of epidemiology. Now let's understand what is the aim of pharmacoepidemiology. World Health Organization targets its pharmacoepidemiological efforts to ensure three main things. The one, quality of the drug. Second, the safety of the drug. And third, the efficacy of the drug. So mostly the studies focus on what are the global trends of the prescribing, what is the appropriateness of the usage of the drug, what are the adherence, you can say the what are the medication adherence, lifestyle effects, do they hamper or do they are beneficial, or how do they have an impact over the drug therapy, are there any specific type of ADRs or the effects observed in a specialized population like elderly patients or the pregnant ladies or a pediatric patients, are there any drug interactions, are there any predictable adverse drug reactions, or there are any uncommon unpredictable adverse drug reactions. So what I have listed over here are generally the focus when they carry out the pharmacoepidemiological studies. There can be some specialized foci also. The pharmacoepidemiological studies concentrate on the period after the drug enters in the market. So the alternative terminology which can be used for it is a post-marketing surveillance. These studies are concerned with majorly two aspects when we talk about PMS. The study of the adverse effect of the drug and appropriate use of the medicine. So what does the pharmacoepidemiology tells us? It creates a signal, it generates a signal. So very important, you can say, application of the pharmacoepidemiology is a generation of a signal. The term signal usually used in electronics for many years. But now it has been coined in even in the reporting of the adverse drug reaction and the pharmacovigilance in recent times with the evolvement of the various ADR monitoring systems at a global level, obviously with the support of World Health Organization. It is used as an early warning in case of a ADR. Signal means it's an early detection or a warning which you are giving related to the ADR associated with a particular drug. Most commonly associated with ADR, but it can also be sometimes a signal term can be used if you find any new drug application. For example, minoxidil was first indicated for treatment of the hypertension, but a signal generated with the case report, and it was identified that hirsutism is one of the side effect and was observed in number of the patients, and you can see that now the drug is marketed mainly to stimulate the hair growth for treatment of alopecia. Signal is sometimes a reported information on possible causal relationship between an adverse effect and a drug medicine. Aspirin, first indicated as an analgesic or to relieve the pain and inflammation, and later on it is used in cardiac diseases because it has a blood thinning property, it has an antiplatelet property. So that was a signal which was observed that there is an antiplatelet activity, platelet aggregation is inhibited, and it was repurposed. So antiplatelet activity of the drug was a signal which was detected through the epidemiological studies. Then another application is that you can quantify the risk involved. So risk quantification is the process of evaluating the risks that have been identified and developing the data for other purposes like making the decisions on other occasions. Risk quantification of ADR often require large sample size. Various measures of the risk are used in pharmacoepidemiology to quantify the probability of experiencing adverse outcome, capture the relative increases in the risk between treated and the untreated populations. For example, you can identify what are the chances of the cumulative incidences, incidence rate, absolute risk reduction, relative risk, or odds ratio, incidence rate, and so on. So you can determine, you can evaluate, you can quantify the degree of the risk involved with that particular medicine or the drug which is under observation. Then next very important application of the pharmacoepidemiology is hypothesis testing. If pharmacoepidemiology, it involves the use of a comparison group of a population to find out whether there are any differences variables of the of interest. It requires the use of a comparison group to determine whether there are differences in the variable of interest like risk factor, trait, characteristic, drug exposed, or clinical condition. Obviously, statistical methods will be required to assess whether the observed differences could have occurred by chance alone. Conclusion about relationship between the exposure to a drug and a clinical event thus is always based on the ability to reject null hypothesis, postulating that two groups are no difference with regard to either exposure of the drug or to the clinical event. Now, from where you get the data for the pharmacoepidemiological study? So, what are the different sources of the data? The sources of the drug data majorly include institutionalized medical records and databases. Either you can get it from the hospitals or the pharmacy claims, system-wide databases from the health insurance claims or pharmaceutical organizations, national database like medical expenditure panel survey or national ambulatory medical care surveys, or field data records from the dispensers, from the sellers, from the distributors, or even some smaller groups. And very importantly, you can get a data from the experimental studies or the experimental data which is involved in the clinical trials. Let us understand that what are the applications. The first, as I already talked with you, that a risk involved in the drug can be quantified. So quantification of risk. Weighing of the benefit and the risk ratio. How much is the benefit from that particular drug and how much is a, so risk benefit or benefit risk ratio can be determined. Risk estimation also helps to identify under which situation the risk is involved. For example, case report of the triazolam induced psychiatric disturbances appeared soon after it was introduced into the market and then it was withdrawn in some of the countries, but later on it was found that this effect is related to the dose and the problem was then abated by recommending that use of a lower dose. Even pharmacoepidemiological study play a very important role in patient counseling. Like when you collect and analyze the observation data from the other studies, it may help you to address certain issues while counseling the patient. For example, I have given here that there may be a pregnant lady or a pregnant patient who wish to terminate the pregnancy if she has consumed a drug which is of a substantial risk to induce some defect in the organogenesis, or there is a serious problem of having a birth of the malformed child, or she can continue with her pregnancy if the risk is low. So here you understand that once the risk is quantified, the decisions can be taken or a counseling can be done in that case. Formulation of a public health policy decisions. Here both the studies, the quantitative as well as the qualitative information of the pharmacological epidemiological studies, they can help to address many issues. If an inappropriate prescribing is observed among the prescribers, the regulatory agencies may induct certain educational programs, or there may be educational interventions, or sometimes they may impose restrictions on specific drugs or the practitioners. Even pharmacoepidemiological studies also help the policymakers to assess whether the drug should be withdrawn from the market or should done certain interventions or so that the drug can continue with minimum risk involved in it. It can also help to formulate a therapeutic guidelines and a discovery of a new indication, as some of the examples we already discussed. It helps to examine the effectiveness of the drug in elderly as well as in pediatric patients. Also in patients which are associated with certain other comorbidities, or they are not going to use your drug alone, they might be using a drug in combination with certain other drugs. It also helps to determine if there are any new indications of the drug, which we already discussed about minoxidil and aspirin. Even it helps in the facilitation of the pharmacoeconomic evaluation. Pharmacoeconomic itself is another parameter in clinical pharmacy or another chapter in the clinical pharmacy, but epidemiological studies can help pharmacoeconomic decisions. Data from pharmacoeconomic studies can be used to measure the effect of the drugs on, pharmacoepidemiological studies can be used to measure the effects of the drug on overall cost which is involved and how much is a resource consumption. Like hospitalization, if it is happening due to an adverse effect of the drug, then that leads to more expenses as well as resource consumption, and which could be avoidable if any alternative, more effective drug with less side effect is available. And that data can be derived from carrying out pharmacoepidemiological studies, which will help to take the decisions on the pharmacoeconomics. What are the other applications of the pharmacoepidemiological study? The age-based medicine use and its analysis can be performed. You can generate a database for some other studies. You can perform vigilance. Pharmacovigilance is possible with epidemiological studies. Even you can perform analysis of the drug usage and it empowering the pharmacogenomic studies and evaluation of the hospital committee. These are some other applications of pharmacoepidemiology. Before we enter into the methods of the pharmacoepidemiology, let us understand why there is a need for pharmacoepidemiology. Because there is a lack of any other alternative model to investigate the drug events. For example, to evaluate a teratogenic effect of any newly launched medicine, obviously you have to conduct pharmacoepidemiological studies. Even clinical trials are not adequate. The data of the clinical trial is not adequate to answer the questions about the long-term safety of the drug because they lack adequate statistical power. The N sample size is limited. If at all adequate for establishing effectiveness, the sample size is inadequate to detect less common adverse drug reactions. Clinical trials are conducted on highly selected patients which are not having any other comorbidities, but when the product goes into the market, it's not necessary that your product will be taken only by the patient who is for which it is indicated. It can be taken by the patient who is associated with certain other comorbidities other than for what disease it is indicated. And then there can be certain complications. Even clinical trial does not involve elderly patients or the pediatric patients or the pregnant patients. So you don't have a substantial or a foolproof data that when the product is launched into the market, how it is going to produce effects in this specialized population. Clinical trial investigate a single indication and hence they fail to provide adequate information related to the safety and efficacy of the drug under non-trial conditions. In contrast, pharmacoepidemiological models provide alternative approaches to evaluate various effects. It can be ADR, it can be drug interaction, it can be alternative effect, it can be a side effect. So various types of the drug effects can be evaluated with epidemiological studies. Let's understand that since we have discussed that why there is a need for pharmacoepidemiological study, and we have understood that there are many limitations of the clinical trial. So let's understand what are those limitations of the clinical trial. Short duration, yes. Pre-marketing studies are carried out in a very limited period. The effects that develop on chronic use or those have a long latency period do not get detected, or they don't get detected over at that within that stipulated period. Yes, small sample size, few drugs are studied more than 4,000 subjects before FDA approval. Effects that occur with frequency of less than 1 out of 1,000 are difficult to detect. Narrowly defined population pre-marketing study generally do not include special population, as I already mentioned. Children, pregnant ladies, women, or elderly patients are not included, so no data about it is available. Narrow set of indications. Manufacturer pursues specific indication because he wants to market that drug for a particular indication. So he is more concerned about whether my drug is benefiting or is giving me that output. Limited comparison group. The comparison group is often limited most of the time to the placebo only. So these are certain limitations which can be overcome by the post-marketing surveillance or by the pharmacoepidemiological studies. I can give you a number of examples which were approved after the data of the clinical trial has been submitted, and several medications have been after that removed from the market because they were showing a serious adverse effect over the last 30 years. Suicidal tendencies associated with fluoxetine, which we have studied as a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor drug. Tardive dyskinesia associated with metoclopramide, antipsychotic drug. Stroke or heart attack associated with a very famous drug, sildenafil, if it is combined with nitroglycerin, and so on. There are a number of examples. A very well-known example is of the thalidomide tragedy, or a gray baby syndrome with chloramphenicol, or a gynecological cancer in offspring women receiving diethylstilbestrol, liver diseases with bonaxaprofen, or valvular heart diseases with dexfenfluramine, and cardiac arrhythmias with terfenadine. So these are the very commonly used drugs and were very famous, were settled into the market, but still they were required to be withdrawn because of their serious side effects, adverse effects, which were observed on the epidemiological studies on the post-marketing surveillance. So then there is a need for epidemiology. So which strata of our society, or which are the people in the society who will need these pharmacoepidemiological studies? A very importantly, patient. Next to that is prescriber. Next to that is researcher, even the academician, payer, that is government, and insurance companies, and very importantly, regulatory bodies. So these are the people, or these are going to be the bodies which will be in need of pharmacoepidemiological studies. First, let's understand government. Various healthcare plans and government agencies who are informing and developing policy and are managing the drug therapy for a larger population, they find pharmacoepidemiology very important a database. Government agencies like Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, Centers for Medicare, Medicaid Services are interested in learning how the drug products are used in the real world. Results from these studies can inform policy and drive educational interventions. Health plans are responsible for providing access to the medication in a quality manner and at affordable cost to a variety of the population group. And epidemiological findings may inform them when making such decisions about coverage issues, educational intervention, and other policies. They also provide a means to evaluate interventions and policies that affect the use of medicine or medication utilization. The next is industry itself, pharmaceutical industry. The industries want to understand that how my drug is getting prescribed, used, what are the outcomes, whether they are positive or negative outcomes, are they attributed to my drug or something else. So working with FDA, the company can use this information to educate the public and the practitioners about their product. They can, if there are any adverse effects, side effects, they can develop certain interventions to ensure that there is a safe use of their drug in practice. They pursue other indications for approval also. Like if they have found that, okay, this drug rather than for what it has been indicated is been in clinical practice has been used for some other indication. They can perform certain studies and they can even apply for that indication for approval. They identify issues for further study and respond to the legal issues if there are any queries. Here I given the example of the AstraZeneca, which has launched an epidemiological program to complement the safety data obtained from randomized clinical trial and spontaneous reporting system. And this program was consisted of the 9 studies. The 4 studies evaluated characteristics of the patient of new users of the rosuvastatin compared with the new users of the other statins in automated databases. The 4 studies were safety evaluation studies that examine the rates of specific ADRs in different cohorts of statins users and determine the risk factor for these events. And whereas the other study was a prescription event monitoring study that monitored for significant events recorded by the general practitioners after starting the treatment with rosuvastatin. So all these studies were carried out into the different countries like United Kingdom, US, Canada, Netherlands, and then collectively it was including around 50,000 patients, and they wanted to know that how their drug is running into the market. Another important is a factor, or you can say the strata of the society who needs epidemiological study is practitioners. Because pharmacists, physicians, nurses, public health officials, and other healthcare practitioners, they always make a daily decision about the treatment of the patient. They are also interested to know how the drug is running into the market from the data of the pharmacoepidemiological studies. And that data only help them or informs them to take a proper decision at both individual patient level and at the population. Academicians, yes, who may or may not be clinicians, but they are also interested in the use of the drug product in large population, and that's why they conduct for research purpose or for scientific research purpose. They conduct certain epidemiological studies. This is very common in the courses like practice of pharmacy or PharmD programs. Furthermore, they are interested in advancing the science and trying to refine the techniques and methodologies to find out the answers to the practice related questions so that proper strategies and methods can be developed to solve the problem. Attorneys. It becomes apparent that attorneys and those which are in the legal system, they also found the data of the epidemiology very helpful because it helps, it can be used by them as a evidence that a drug product did or did not cause the event. So these legal systems, as well as the hospital administrator, various pharmaceutical companies, clinicians, and the others who are aware of a litigation, are interested in all these findings, and they understand the importance of monitoring the use of medication. Consumers and patient, although last but very important. The patient advocacy group also rely on the pharmacoepidemiological studies to learn about, okay, this is a new product which has come, but is it safe? Is it effective? So there are a number of websites such as adverse drug reaction electronic systems that provide a venue for the patients to look at the safety information about a particular drug product. There are consumer groups like public citizens are also interested in finding and lobbying the FDA to act upon information from these studies. The media also sometimes takes this information on the medication or the patterns of the safety of the medication. So there are many other consumers along with the patient who can use, who will need this data of a pharmacoepidemiological studies. So once you are understood now why there is a need, who has a need, and how do they use that pharmacoepidemiological data. Another is the international users. Now, most of the time, we are always under the impression that a country like a US is always more aware or is more alert about the safety of the drug or a safe use drug use pattern in a larger population. Yes, it's very true. But along with that, it's always governments, practitioners, academicians, and others all around the world. They are also interested. They are also interested in conducting epidemiological studies. For that matter, World Health Organization, International Drug Monitoring Program, it also collects the data from 30 countries to identify a potential drug problems. Many countries they have their national database, national registries, which provide very good opportunity for pharmacoepidemiological research. In United Kingdom, there is a general practice research database that contains clinical data, including laboratory data, diagnosis, the prescribed drugs, and a lot of clinical information. So even though it's not necessary that only you launch the product in your country and only those patients or the people or organizations or regulatory bodies in your country will be interested in knowing about your product data after marketing it, but there may be number of international users which will be also looking for such type of data. So after understanding that wide applicability of the data of the pharmacoepidemiology, let us understand what are the different types of the epidemiological studies. As we already understood that it is a study of the distribution and very importantly resulting determinants of a disease on population. So we can divide it into the two main types, that is observational study and intervention study. When you say observation studies, then observation studies are of two types, descriptive and analytical, where we can further divide it descriptive into ecological case report, case series, and analytical can be further divided into cross-sectional, case control, and cohort can be co-current, non-co-current, and hybrid design. And interventions obviously are clinical trials and the field trials and community intervention studies. So when you talk about observational studies, investigator measures cause but does not intervene. Descriptive study, it focuses on the description of the occurrence of a disease in a particular population, where analytical study will analyze the relationship between the health status and what are the different variables, factors. So when we compare, the experimental or interventional studies involve an active attempt to change a disease determinant or the progress of the disease. And these studies are always based on a group which has had the experience compared with control group and which has not had any experience with that group. So today we will stop over here knowing the applications, the need, the definition and the types of epidemiological studies. And in part 2 we will discuss about what are the different methods which are used to conduct pharmacoepidemiological studies.